Hello. We meet today in English. Hello, Ali.
Hi.
With Ali Hazelwood, who is a brilliant young writer calling from the US, although she is Italian and she moved from Italy to write in English in the US. And now she's being translated into many languages, into Romanian and into Italian as well. Welcome, Ali, to the Litera Publishing House, to this talk and to this festival. And thank you so much for having accepted this interview.
Thank you guys for having me. This is so exciting. I'm so excited that my book is coming to Romania. I'm just like, I've seen the Romanian cover and it's so pretty. I love it. So I'm so excited.
I'm glad you love it. Your books are coming to Romania because it's not only the Hypothesis of Love, the book we're talking about today, but also the second part of it, which will be published next year. So let's go back to the Hypothesis of Love, and because the title is great. And I think everybody who sees the cover, as you said, is so enticed to actually open the book and see what's inside. Can you tell me, please, how you got to this title, to this metaphor? What's the hypothesis of love? And let's not forget, I forgot to mention this, that you are a scientist, like your character, and that you come to writing from a very different field, and this gives you a certain scientific authority. So I'm asking you this question, not only of a writer, but also of a scientist.
That's so funny because the original title of the book was it was something totally different. It was actually like purely academic. That was the original title of the book. And my agent was like, after, I signed with my agent and she agreed to pitch the book to editor, she was like, we should get something a little bit sexier as a title. And I had no ideas. I was like, I have no clue. Like, I'm just really bad at giving titles. And then, I was talking with my friends, and my friend, especially my friend Alana, who is so good at puns and word plays. She like brainstormed a bunch of different titles for me. And actually my favorite one was, it was something like, don't sell me love, don't call me baby, but like it was don't sell me baby, like sell as in, the sell. It was like so cute. But then she landed on the love hypothesis, and my agent loved that one. So that's how the title came about. And then, the entire final scene of the book is about like she actually is talking about, hypothesis testing and how, sometimes you have a false positive when something seems true, but it's not. And sometimes you have a false negative when something seems like it's not true, but it is. And so it wasn't even intentional, but a title tied in so well. And so it just felt so perfect. And I owe everything to my friend Alana. So kisses and love to my friend if she ever sees this interview.
Lots of love to her. Don't call her babe.
It was such a good title. And my agent was like, no.
Maybe next one. Who knows?
Maybe next one, yeah.
But you're very similar to your character, or your character is very similar to you. We're talking about Olive, and her friend is very similar to your friend Alana.
And you know what? Yeah, a little bit. Now that I think about it.
Did you write your own story? I suppose you get this question all the time. I'm joking right now, of course not.
Yeah,
but how much of this hypothesis is true?
Honestly, not a whole lot. Like, there are some things, of course, that I took from my own experience as a woman in STEM, and but it's mostly the little things, like, the way you interact with your fellow grad students, or the fact that all grad students want free food because we're kind of like poor, or, the fact that we have to stay in lab till really late, or like the really competitive culture. So I took a bunch of, little experiences and frustrations and joys that came from my own graduate school life, and I put them in the story. But I do feel like personality wise, Olive and I are very different. And like Olive is, very much a fictional character. I definitely have never had like weird fake dating experiences with hot professors. I don't think I really had many hot professors around me when I was in grad school, sadly. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I feel like the things that I put of my own experience in the book are more like the minor contextual things, and the big things are definitely fictional.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said the magic words, the hot professor. Let's not spoil this wishful thinking of every student. Yes. We'll go back to that, and I will ask you if this hot professor, her Olive's love interest, is more of a Popeye or more of a Bluto. We'll see. But first, let me ask you how you got to writing in English from a background which was not that of a typical writer. What did you study in Italy, and how did this interest in writing love fiction grow for you?
Right. So I am a neuroscientist by training. So I did some writing before, but it was mostly like, scientific academic writing, like, essays and papers and scholarly articles and stuff like that. Yeah, like nothing cool. And then
I love this. You say, I'm a neuroscientist.
Well, I mean,
whatever.
It is like, I feel like if you are going into, writing stuff, creative stuff, being a neuroscientist doesn't really, it's not as cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And but really what happened was that a few years ago I discovered fan fiction, and I actually, so originally, I'm Italian, like you said, and then Italian is of course my first language, and then I moved to the US for grad school to do my doctorate. And about a couple of years into my doctorate, I think I was just very frustrated with, I was tired. I think I didn't really have any hobbies. I was just like in the lab all the time. And then that was around the time that I discovered fan fiction. Mm-hmm. And I was like in love. It was love at first sight. And the fan fiction is, a lot, not all of it, but a lot of the fan fiction that is out there is in English, mostly because a lot of the media that fan fiction is written about is in English. I was in the Star Trek fandom and the Star Wars fandom because I've always been a big sci-fi fan. And of course, the fan fiction that I read was mostly in English. There was some in Italian, but like really most of it, like 99% of it was in English. And so I started reading fan fiction in English, and then when I started writing, of course, it made the most sense for me to just like write it in the same language as I was reading it, And because I was living in the US, because most of the fic that I was reading was in English, I kind of ended up, just writing in English. And then me writing original work was very much tied to me writing fan fiction, because that's how my agent found me. That's how I started writing romance books. And so I just kind of ended up continuing to write in English. And I was also writing mostly about academia, I think, because the first few fan fictions that I wrote were set in academia and like STEM environments, because I was a PhD student. I was writing my dissertation, and I was just very frustrated with my environment. And it was such a like fun idea to write stuff that was set in the same environment that I was in, but with like a romantic twist, so that it seemed less tiring and miserable and more exciting and fun, and like just kind of like giving a rom-com twist to my life. And that's kind of how I ended up setting my stories in these settings. And it just kind of stuck. Like my second book as well and my third book are going to be set in STEM. So and then we'll see.
Which is great. So you made this huge step. And it's interesting because there are very few books written in this humorous tone about the academia, as you say, and about labs. And the question, I think, is how do you make a lab sexy or interesting, especially since you say that there are no hot professors. unfortunately.
In my specific experience. I'm sure that there are several hot professors out there, but you know what, like I think my book is kind of comes like there were books like when I was growing up and I was reading romance novels, I read a bunch of like really, really good romance novels with like heroes and heroines that had like really good STEM backgrounds. Like one example is Sherry Thomas. She writes historical romance, and like she one of the things that I love about her work is that a lot of her couples usually come together because they bond over specific like science interests. And so that was something that I was like, this is so cool. Like I'm so taken by this. And you know, another great book is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong, which has a scientist main character. And you know, so I think I took a lot of inspiration from these authors that I love and adore about like the way they described these really cool, you know, characters that had strong passions for their academic work. And I try to like kind of channel a little bit what they did with their characters in my own books.
Well, it's also refreshing because since you're a neuroscientist writing about love, maybe you can shed a bit of light on this topic, which is so dark, actually. It's always dark and it's always serious. We don't know much about it.
And even in neuroscience, we know so little about like the neuroscience of love. I mean, we know something, but like truly we know so little about the brain and emotions. So yeah, it's a mystery.
Well, actually, I have to ask you before we go back to Olive, what's your opinion on the fact that the World Health Organization declared a couple of years ago love or infatuation as a mental disease?
Oh my God, I didn't even know
that. Or at least some kind of trouble, if not a proper disease, some kind of pathology. It's like having OCD, because there are so many similarities between OCD. I've started stammering when I say this because it affects me.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I need to read up on this. Yes, oh my God.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Amazing. Well, honestly, I love this in a way.
Well, yeah. So we have the excuse now.
Exactly.
We know what happens. We can't help it, but we know what happens. So who's Olive and what does she do? And I have to say just one thing to her defense or against her, that she doesn't quite believe in love. She's kind of against it, and she vowed not to fall prey to love until a hot professor comes her way. What happens and why this plot? Is it because it's intriguing to oppose yourself to love? It's such an impossible plea.
I mean, I think it just kind of fit her character a little bit. Like it's her background is that, you know, she has kind of like she has had a bit of a rough upbringing, and her experience, you know, right now Olive is a third-year PhD student in biology, and her experience is that most of the people who have been around her, because for one reason or another, kind of ended up leaving. So her idea is that love is just not feasible in the long run. It might just not be something that is actually going to be there for her. And that's part of the reason why she decides to just kind of throw herself in her work. You know, it's something that is more reliable for her. I think whenever you write a character, you kind of need a conflict that is going to prevent them from finding love in the first 15 pages of their book. So being like reticent or being like a little bit hesitant when it comes to falling in love is always a good conflict to add into a book, I guess.
So you don't think there is sustainable development for love?
I 100%. So? I mean, I am happily married. I think love is 100%. But and even Olive in the end of the book comes around and is like, okay, yeah, I can let myself believe in love. So I think it's just like a little bit of a journey that she has to go through.
Well, don't we all? She was not spared. So how about her love interest, the professor? He seems to be a villain at first.
A little bit.
Not a good person, or not a very serious person at least. And then it's proven, I mean, you prove it through your writing, that we can believe in fairy tales even in a lab. Why this twist, and why did you want him to be not so serious in the beginning and then become a very nice guy?
I think I just really like the idea of the guy who seems kind of cold and aloof and like not able to love. And maybe he actually is like that, but you know, it's kind of like a dream, like where, you know, it's very good, like wish fulfillment, the idea of this guy who has never been in love, but then, you know, he finds someone who is perfect for him, and like his entire worldview changes. I think it's like a big fantasy, and I've always loved reading romance novels that have this kind of heroes. Like, for example, you know, like Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. He is, you know, cold and unlikable, and he just doesn't care about anyone. But then he meets Elizabeth, and through time, he just changes completely. He falls in love with her, and through his love for her, he changes as a person as well, because he sees himself through her eyes. And that's something that I just, you know, really liked. It's the type of hero that I've always gone for. So I wanted to like recreate that or something like that.
Well, it doesn't always happen like this in real life, but it's good that we can keep the hope, at least in literature.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's very interesting as well, because you are married to a German, if I may say that.
Yeah.
So you live in the US, you are Italian, you are a neuroscientist. Let's not forget that. I have to stress that out. How do you handle all these things, and how much of this situation, let's say, is reflected in your books, not in terms of actual details from your life, but in terms of your mental frame? Because you seem a very lively person, and you stated it yourself that you like to read romance books, and you're interested in this part of this writing, which is also humorous at the same time with being, let's say, serious about certain aspects like love and like science. So is your personal life influencing the writing process in any way?
You know, I think a little bit, like it just, I think a little bit, but mostly in superficial ways. I feel like, I mean, there are like some of my, like I said before, some of my frustrations and some of the challenges that I experienced as an academic, of course, make it into the book. But I feel like I don't necessarily put, you know, my specific love story in the book, but I do take little bits of my life and kind of like, you know, put them in my story, but it's more because I like to put little Easter eggs in them in the story. One example is, you know, like the main character of my second book is, you know, was born, I think she was born in Germany, and then she grew up part of it in Italy. And like what I wanted to give her was some kind of like wandering lifestyle, like the idea that she never had like roots. And it seemed like fun to, you know, take my husband's citizenship and my citizenship and like put it in the book, you know, like little things. But then in the end, like her personality and her struggles are completely different from, you know, mine. But yeah, I mean, it definitely is fun to put like little details from my life in books, and just kind of like see where it goes, because of course my characters are different people from me, and they will react in different ways to, you know, similar situations. So
Is your husband a neuroscientist as well? No.
No, he is an English professor of English. Like he also came to the US for grad school, but he studied English instead of science.
So still in the academia. So are you going to leave this milieu, or you're just going to write and handle both at the same time?
It's unclear. Like it's we'll see what happens. I mean, for now I only have published one book, so it's hard to say what's going to happen. But yeah, sometimes I think about it. It's hard to manage both, and I am not very good at I am not one of those people who's like, I get up in the morning and I have a list of tasks and I do all of them. Like I am the kind of person who's just like, oh no, I forgot to do this thing that was due 5 days ago. Total panic for 2 hours. So that's not the type of personality that goes well with having 2 full-time jobs. So I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I'll keep you updated and I'll let you know.
Please do. We are very interested in this because we want you to keep writing.
I want to keep writing so much, so definitely there's that.
Okay. Is it difficult to change the language? So did you write in Italian before moving to the US and writing in English?
Not really. I mean, definitely moving to the US and starting to use a different language was definitely a challenge. Like it's, it was a learning curve, learning to, speak in English, and just even learning not just English, but it's like all these little cultural references that American people use and that I just didn't understand because I didn't grow up in this place, or even nuances of languages, like, oh, that word does not mean what you think it means, or this specific, expression can be offensive and stuff like that. That was definitely a big learning curve, and I'm still learning a bunch of things. But I never really wrote fiction in Italian. Like I started writing very late in my life, I guess. Like it's a very recent development for me, and I only started after I moved to the US. So it's not like it was a shift. Like for me, writing is something that I've always done in English.
So I have to ask you, you told me before, but we're just going to pretend that I haven't asked you before,
okay.
about your name, because since you are Italian, Ali Hazelwood is not a very typical Italian name.
It is not. Yeah, no, I mean, Hazelwood, so I thought that maybe it would be a better idea to have like a pen name, because mostly because I was like, maybe people don't want to Google and find my research publications and my scholarly articles. Like maybe what they want is to find my actual, romance novels. Like no one who is Googling a romance novelist wants to find a neuroscience article.
Now, why not? I'm pretty sure there are many professors, hot or not, who do this.
Maybe. But yeah, I was like, let's get a pen name maybe. And I didn't really have any idea, except that, a lot of my friends that write books, they chose their pen names by, using a family name or, the name of someone that they admire. I was just running at the cemetery here where I live, and I found there was this tombstone and said Hazelwood, and I really liked the name Hazelwood. And so I was like, you know what, Hazelwood it is, and I chose it. That was it.
Well, it's good one can recycle names like this.
Exactly. Whenever people tell me, oh, I'm looking for names for my protagonist, my advice is always take a walk at the cemetery. You'll find so many names, first names, last names, all the names you want.
It's better to walk than to run because you can actually read properly.
Exactly.
Well, it's a good name indeed. And
thank you.
Echoes writing and mysteries and forests, magical forests, and so on.
Yeah, I liked it. Had a little bit of a fantasy touch, which it's not what I write, but I still liked it.
Okay, so the hypothesis of love, I'm sticking to this because it's very interesting and it stays with you. So you keep thinking, what is the hypothesis of love and what's the answer? And maybe there's a formula that Olive finds, or maybe you found. Can you translate love into a formula? You know, like gasoline has a big formula, chemical one. Is there such a thing for love?
You know, I really liked actually that like the Romanian cover has oxytocin on top of it, which is, you know, it's the neurotransmitter or the hormone that like is usually, you know, people say, oh, oxytocin is love.
The binding hormone, yeah.
Exactly.
When you hug someone, that's the first one.
Exactly, you know. And I really like that. But I think what Olive finds in the end is that there is really no formula, and you just kind of have to take love as it is. And, you know, it's something that you can't necessarily science your way into, and that you kind of, it's kind of like a leap of trust and faith. Yes, exactly. You just have to say, you know what, let's hope it works.
Okay. Well, it worked for the book, and it will definitely work for the second part of it. What's the story in that, if you can tell us in a few words?
Right. So, well, it's not as very much, it is a second book, but it's, you know, it's different about, it's a book about different characters, and it has, it's in the same, I can tell you that it's in the same universe as the Love Hypothesis, but that's really something that you notice more like in book 3, because in book 3, like, well, the characters from book 1 and the characters from book 2 both make an appearance, so you realize that like we're in the same universe, and these characters are more connected than you would think. But generally, the second book, Love and the Brain, is about different characters, and the main character is actually a neuroscientist who is chosen to work on a very prestigious project for NASA, and her career has been kind of struggling recently. So this project is incredibly important for her, and she is super excited when she's chosen to lead it. But the main issue is that the person she's going to lead the project with is an engineer who used to be her nemesis in grad school. And so, they find themselves having to work together. And the book is a story of how they go through it and figure it out. That maybe they don't hate each other.
Talk about oxytocin with no gravity. So in a spaceship. Sorry. So you know what? I thought about this from the beginning of the interview. I'm thinking of Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. And
in Gravity.
NASA came up, so it was only logical for you to go there.
Perfect.
And they're in a very close space.
Yeah.
And see what happens, what that gives.
You know, I never saw that movie. I am kind of terrified by space. I wanted to watch it, but then I was like, I saw the trailer and I was like, I don't know that I can, like, I think it's gonna like disturb me a little bit, but I will one day.
It's fine.
When I'm strong enough.
He doesn't die, so it's fine.
He dies though, right?
Sort of.
Let's
a little bit. Spoil it. Well, who knows? It's like he's up there.
He's up there. Who knows?
He might as well be alive in some other parallel universe. So, but Love and the Brain is such a great title as well, because it seems that it's going to reveal a lot of things about what we were saying before.
Yes. It doesn't though.
The pathology of love. Not yet, but maybe. Who knows?
Maybe.
Have you thought about putting more science and scientific facts in your novels, just to give them more substance in terms of this neurological background, because you're good at it, so you come from this background. It's a shame, it's a pity not to use it.
I do think Love and the Brain has a little bit more like fun facts about the brain than the Love Hypothesis has about biology, but it's also like striking a balance. Like I very much, you know, I am very much trying to write a romance novel first, and anything else comes later. Like I definitely don't want to write, like I really, what I want people to take away from my books is truly like a couple of hours of enjoyment over, anything else. I don't want them to be like, I don't want them to feel like I am trying to teach them something, I just want them to like have fun while reading. So it's kind of like a balance that you have to strike between enjoyment and, not kind of bogging down the story with details that people might not be interested in. And actually my US editor, Sarah Blumenstock, is amazing at like kind of helping me keep that balance and make it so that, the science doesn't feel unsurmountable to readers, but also the setting feels realistic. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a whole, it's definitely work to balance those two things.
I don't think you have to worry because nobody ever learns anything out of stories about love. They make the same mistakes all over again. So you can put whatever science you want in there because they will just appreciate it rationally. And that's it. Since you mentioned your editor and we salute her, I have to ask you how hard it was for you to find an American editor. Since you didn't come from this background and you wrote in a different language. Is there a bias when people take up manuscripts if they see that the author is not writing in English as a first language?
I don't even know that my editor knew that. So like the way it worked for me is that, I was writing fan fiction and I found my agent through fan fiction in a way. And like we kind of met on social media, and then my agent was like, okay, I'm going to pitch your book to editors. And it definitely took me a while to find an editor. I was on sub for a bunch of months, I think 8-9 months. But that was also, to be fair, it was also 2020 and it was like the COVID period. So things were going very slow in publishing because a bunch of people were kind of like adjusting to being at home. It was a tough period. So I don't know that it's necessarily had anything to do with the book. And I don't think it had anything to do with me being not a native speaker, because I don't think my editor knew, or if they knew, the thing is that a book goes through so much. Like not only you get an editor who gives you developmental edits on the story, but then you get like a copy editor and a proofreader. So like any type of grammar issues that I might have had were kind of, we all knew that they were going to get fixed in the publishing process. So I don't think there was any, discrimination or anything like that.
No,
if anything.
That's not what I meant. Sorry, I just. It's difficult to get in because there are so many constraints, and it's a tough competition, I think, in this field as well. In the field,
totally, but like I also have to be honest that like for this state for the way American publishing is right now, I think it's actually harder if you are, for example, an author of color than if you are a white author writing in their non-native language. So there's that for the way it is in America right now, I think.
Well, that's a pity because
it is.
Color doesn't show, and even if it shows, 100%, that would be a great asset to
right. Absolutely,
as many colors as possible.
Absolutely, I think there has been a reckoning in publishing in the US where more and more publishing houses are realizing that it's important to have narratives of people who have been traditionally underrepresented, and to be able to like offer to readers this type of narratives. So I do think I do hope things are getting better.
Do you plan to write a novel or a book in Italian as well?
Not really. No, I mean, I'm glad that my work, like the Love Hypothesis, has been translated in Italian, and I'm excited about that. But for now, I think, my entire life is in English right now. Like I speak in English to my husband. I go to work and speak in English. Like most of my friends are, here. So they are Americans or people that I talk in English with. So it's hard to imagine to like go back and write something in Italian, but never say never,
Well, but do you think that your writing was more influenced by you being an European or by you living in the US right now?
Oh, it's so hard to tell.
Mhm.
I definitely think that my writing was influenced a lot by fan fiction.
Mhm.
The most, and like some fan fiction is written by people in Europe, and some fan fiction is written by people in the US. So I want to say that like it almost transcends that. If I think about it, yeah, I would feel like it goes beyond that, and it's more about, you know, yeah, it's more about fan fiction. I think that was my biggest influence.
What's your favorite character from fan fiction? Because since you mentioned this, we can invite you to the Comic-Con here in Bucharest.
Oh my God, I would love that. I would love it. I'm actually going to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time this year, and I'm like, I'm living my best life. This is so amazing. Definitely Spock. Like there is something about Spock. Like I just love writing about Spock.
Are you going to dress up as Spock?
I would love to. I would love to. I would love to cosplay.
Well, I can still do this.
I can, but I have to like move my.
You have to think a bit before doing it, and just yeah. Well, it works.
It's funny because there is like in the original series, there's actually a scene in which Bones, Dr. McCoy, is like trying to figure out how to do it, and I was like, I'm like him.
We have to do it fast, so don't think about it, and just then you are a true believer.
Yes.
Well, why did you call her Olive? It's like it keeps coming into my mind because it's funny, it's cute at the same time.
I know. Honestly, I stole the name from a friend, my husband's friend. Well, not even like friend, like someone that my husband was friends with on Facebook. So I think someone he was in grad school with, they had a daughter and they called her Olive. And I remember like, I don't know, he was like on Facebook and like there were pictures and I was like, oh, that child is so cute. She was a ginger. She was super cute. I was like, that child is so cute. And then I read the caption and her name was Olive. And I think that moment I knew that if I ever wrote something original, I would call the character Olive. I just love the name so much. And the child was so cute. And I was like, that's it. It's happening. Olive.
Which brings me to my previous question. Is he a Popeye or a Pluto? The hot professor. Love interest.
I feel like he's a Popeye in the end.
Popeye, yeah, he's a good guy. Yes, flexing his muscles though.
Yeah.
Well, I have one last question for you. Actually, two. Let's make it two.
Please take your time.
One of them is what are you writing right now? If you finished the second part of this book of Olive's story and you move to another one, or if you're already thinking of another one that we don't know of, and that would be a shame.
Yeah, I'm definitely working on I'm working on something different right now. So I'm working on my fourth book. I'm still like in the beginning, in the like, when you're still exploring a story, but I'm working on my fourth book. I can't really say much about it, mostly because, my editor hasn't accepted it yet. So it might never see the light. But, it's a new setting. It has a touch of paranormal, I want to say, fantasy, maybe a touch of fantasy. And and we'll see. This book might never come your way, or like you might never see the light. So for now, I'm just writing it for myself, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, that's the best call of action
of writing.
If you write it, for yourself, then it's great. At least you're happy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a first reader? Is your husband your first reader, or?
No, my husband is not a reader at all. Like, he doesn't get to read my stuff because he is a boring English PhD hipster person who has like all these lofty opinions about literature, and so he doesn't get to read my stories.
He's not there to hear you say that.
He's in Germany right now, so I'm free. My first reader is usually my friend Jen. She is just, she's just great, and she is great at giving me feedback. And then, of course, there is, my editor, Sarah Blumenstock, and my agent, Paole, and they are also like my first, readers and like sounding boards. They are just really, really good at like, just telling me whether the story is going in the right place or it's not. So that there's them. That's this trio of people that I usually go to when I'm like, please help me fix this mess of a draft.
I said 2 questions. I made them 3. So now the last question for this time. And I hope you can come back and maybe come to Bucharest as well. And
I would love to. I would
love
love
launch
to.
of your next book.
I would love to.
Do you have a message for your Romanian readers?
Oh, I mean, my message is thank you so much, first of all, for reading my book, and just like I hope to be there soon. I cannot, like, I've never visited Romania, and it looks amazing. So, and I also, I mean, I was telling you before we started, but I had a bunch of Romanian friends when I was in university. So, I mean, I would love to see them again and hug them. I know they went back home after uni in Italy. So yeah, I just hope to visit soon. And thank you so much for your support. I guess that's my message.
Well, thank you. So their level of oxytocin will raise if you come here to hug them, and if they can hear you say that, which they will.
Exactly.
And thank you so much for the lovely interview and for your book.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to see you and hear you and read you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.